much more in detail. The rig needs to be complete. If there are any mistakes, such as the problem we had over here with the feet, when it was rotating, that needs to be fixed as well. So when you, for example, bring the feet up, it doesn't deform in weird ways, which ours did.
Is it possible to record the screen for us?
We don't have, the computer is going to take a lot of pressure, so please record it on your phones. Alright, so you want to have all those details applied. Now, let's talk really fast about the timeline. What is the timeline? We know a little bit about it up to this point, but we're going to go into much more details and basically understand what the timeline does. The timeline, it's basically taking notes of every change that you create to your character when it comes to the seconds and the frames, right? It deals, so it deals with frames, but for you to kind of have a better understanding of the time, it gives you the seconds as well. So depending on the settings, our setting was 24 frames per second because that's a cinematic setting. You get the seconds on every 24 frames. So let's say over here, I want my character to raise the hand up. So I have that tool selected and I'll raise the hand up to this position. What's going to happen, as you can see, as soon as I did that, a gray line and also a red line appeared down here with points on them. Those points are keyframes, meaning the software is telling us you made a change on that specific frame, right, on your timeline. So the gray one is the general change, right? That means if I don't select anything, it shows me a gray line, and it also, if I go over it, it says bone angle, meaning that a bone was basically rotated on this level, but it doesn't show me which bone it is that was rotated, right? It's just something has happened, you made a change on that point. But if I select the actual bone, now it opens up a red line, meaning the bottom line is basically showing me exactly which bone has which keyframe. So in our case, I grab the beginning of the arm and there's a keyframe on that specific point. It's not only that, it continues on all the bones on the hand. So you have basically, because these are parented to each other, they kind of move at the same time. So now if I play the animation, the hand in 12 frames comes up, right, to that keyframe. Now this is extremely important to understand the concept of. What do I mean exactly by that? So if I, for example, grab this and move it around, I can actually adjust the timing of this. So I can move the keyframes around just by clicking and dragging them. So if I think that was a bit too fast for the movement of the hand, I can extend this to, let's say, instead of 12 frames, I extend it to 36 frames now. And when I play this, the movement becomes much more slower, right? So I can literally kind of adjust the timing. This makes timing your animation much more easier. Now remember when we talked about pose to pose or frame to frame animation in the beginning, right? Frame to frame was a technique that you basically start to draw. Think of it as your stop motion animation, right? You need to basically set up every single frame one after another to shoot it. Now, pose by pose, it was the technique we used, for example, in the flip book, right? So you find the midpoint, just choose the main pose changes, and then fill in the frames in between. When it comes to animating in the techniques that we're going to animate in Movo, we're going to use pose to pose. And it actually makes it really, really easy to do so. Now, obviously, I make the hand come up. Let's say, yeah, that is the frame. Maybe I can bring this hand down. So I'm going to go to frame 36. That was a little bit too slow. So I'm going to go to 1 second, or maybe 18 frames. That is my pose. So I have an initial pose here, which is pose 0. Also, you can press Control F. What it does, it basically adds a key point or keyframe to that specific frame. Whatever is happening on the screen, it makes a keyframe on that specific point. I usually like to create a Control F in the beginning of the animation, so I know I have a keyframe and it's not just a default. I know that's the 0 pose, and then my animation starts. So from this pose, or let's say instead of this, let's just grab his arms and bring them down.
Oh, then you frame 1.
Yes. That's actually putting a keyframe there for me. Alright? So on that frame, the hands are down, and as soon as I play the animation, the hand will come up. It's actually quite slow, so I don't like it to be that. Let's just go frame 12. I think that was a really good start. So the hand comes up. That's my second pose, the major pose. That's the end pose. Now, in order to add detail to this, I can now actually go within these frames and then start to animate whatever I need to animate. So let's say the fingers in this case. So I still have that animation happening, but now I'm adding more details within that animation. So let's say I'm gonna be at this frame, right in the middle. I can make all these small changes. And then now a keyframe is added there. And then maybe at frame 24, this can be completely open. So when the animation starts, the hand goes down. I can add layer and layer and layer to this animation. Now, we will learn much more about creating pose. This is just some basic introduction to this. We will talk in more depth on basically creating walk cycles, how that's going to work, and so on and so forth. This is just something for you guys to kind of see that we have a basic setting here. And let's say now the character starts to shake their hand, right? So I'm going to move. Hello. I'm going to move now the fingers hand in hand, and then move a little bit forward, and then open up the hand. And then I want this to go back to the first position. Now, obviously I can move and then try to match this, or I can simply just copy this, select it, press Ctrl C, move to the frame that I want it to be on, and then press Ctrl V. So now it basically copies and pastes. I can keep doing that for all the frames. So let's do this with this one. I'm going to select that, Ctrl C. I'm going to move a little bit further. I'm going to press Ctrl V. And let's do it a few more times. Alright, so let's see the animation. So that is a way of working with keyframes, and you're going to be working with keyframes a lot during the anime. Basically, that's where the animation takes place. Now, there are some settings to keyframes, right? In order to show it to you, I'm going to I'm going to make sure I'm at frame 0. Let's just create a new shape for us. Okay, so I'm going to add, I'm going to add a new vector. And let's just give it a shape, and I'm going to close this down. Let's autofill and autostroke is on. I'm going to change this to red so you guys can see it easier. And then I have this ball, right? So I'm going to go to the frame 1, press Control F just to have the settings for that frame, and then I'm going to move the layer. So from this point all the way to this point. Sorry, I have to move along in the animation, and then from this point all the way to this point. Turn him off. So now I have the movement of this ball starting from here to the last, to the other side. Now, what you notice is that the starting is a little bit slow. It basically, remember we had ease in and ease out? Again, pay some attention to this and see how that works. It starts slow and then it speeds up. The reason is, by default, you can assign attributes to the keyframes, how they behave. In this case, the starting point for our attributes have smooth option to it, applied to it. So if I click on this smooth, you can see I have all these other options, right? I have smooth, I can make it linear. Linear means it's going to have a constant speed. It's not going to smooth things, right? So if it's linear, you can see the shape of the keyframes change. So now if I play, it has the same speed, constant speed. Moving from point A to point B, it has that constant speed. The speed is not affected.
What about the second 48 frames keyframe? Do you have made it too?
Depends. If that one needs to be smooth, you make it smooth. If that one needs to be linear, you can basically apply this to every single keyframe, right? But there are some more interesting stuff that can happen. Let's go to 8 frame. I'm going to click on this, and maybe there are some funky ones down here. I'm going to click bounce. Okay, and let's have it at 3. Let's see how this behaves. I think I should have done it here. Let me see. Bounce. Right? So you can see some kind of interesting stuff. You can create those interesting stuff. But what it does, it's basically adding automatic keyframes to your animation, right? And to be able to see it a little bit better, we need to actually see a different shape. So it's still the timeline, but we're going to change the shape to see a little bit better what is actually happening. And you can do that by clicking here on the graph. If you click on this, now it's going to show your animation or your keyframes and the way they behave using the graphs to show you what is actually happening. Now, it might be a little bit confusing in the beginning to understand what this actually is, but basically it has selected point motion and it has selected point curvature, and you have this main line down here, right? You can click on this and cycle between different options, or you can right click and then you can click on separate dimensions. So if you click on this, it will bring you here, and now I know the red represents x-axis, the one that we actually use right now. Y is for height, and then z is for depth. So in this case, we need to move from point A to point B. 48 is the last point. We are at 0, that's the starting position, and then this number indicates the distance that it's moving in. So obviously, the more towards positive we go, the more to the right it will move. So basically this number is right and left. The height means the distance. So on x-axis, now it's moving to the right, it hits that point at frame, where was the frame? At frame 14, then it falls back, it moves up again, 34, and less and less. So it basically goes there, bounces back, and moves on and on and on. So, yes, obviously we can see the graph, but what if we want to make some changes? What if this is not exactly the curve we're looking for? We want it to be a little bit smoother. You can actually access that by double-clicking on the axis points. Why is it not? Yeah, now it's open. So now you can see you have the points applied here, right? You can right-click on them, and then you can see you still have all those options, and you can change the distance, make it faster, slower. The distance you can actually apply. The higher it goes, the further it will go. Let's say we don't want it to go all the way to the back. You can choose this area right here, and then press play. Then it won't move at all for some reason. Right?
It went out of your timeline, out of your selected time.
No, it's 108. It should be 48. Let's see. Yes. So you have that reaching this point. That's the last point. So this is the change we created, and then it moves on to the rest of it, right? There you go. So now we made it move a little bit less. These become much more important the more we work our way. But let's go back really fast to our character here. Right? I'm going to choose the character, and in the graph menu you can see there are changes here happening to the character. Right? So the hands are moving. It's all about rotation. So now I can choose, let's say, right now I'm selecting that bone over there. I can alt click. So now this is going to show us the general bone. Now over here I can separate dimensions or rejoin them. Choose hand. Over here there should be settings for the hand. See that? We have the key points. Just because it shows us the frame over here. But it's not showing the. the whole movement settings of the set characters by just adjusting the settings over here or change the settings over here. So if I change this from bounce to linear, let's just change this from bounce to linear as well. And we have created the bounce in the middle. Okay, let's increase this. So from point A to point B, and over here we just delete the one in between. Then we're gonna have a straight line moving from point A to point B. We can speed it up. The same goes with the hand. Also, what you can do is you can change this and add Bezier to kind of fine tune this by going over here and then let's see if they move this out. Yeah, Bezier here. So with this one, I can now click on these and then create the curve that I want and create the shape that I need. So I can do all sorts of different actions just by those movements. All right, so going back to so we talked about this and we will get back to this in much more detail. But why does this matter and what can we do with our character when it comes to that? Now in this case, let's just add really quickly two ears to this character, or maybe some hair. Go back to frame 0, and let's just draw some hair. I'm going to add a vector layer. Let's call this ears. And then let's just quickly draw two here. Out to well, sharp corner, that's fine. And let's grab the color over here, the body. There we go. Let's just draw it. Okay. I'm gonna resize strokes. And let's move these just a little bit. So I'm gonna basically copy and paste this one. Just select all of them, Control C and Control V.
Actually, you don't have to do that. There is like a box in the top that you use.
Yeah, this one, good. Right, so, and I'll just drag this under the face. So now I have two simple ears on the character. I can create a certain type of bone which is called the dynamic bones, right? So what they do is that they will move with the physics of your animation. You don't have to animate them any longer. They will animate for you, depending on the settings that you adjust them. So the way to create that, we're going to go to Add Bones. Make sure no bone is selected. Right now, we have this bone selected. So either Alt, click on your screen, or you can simply press Escape just to make sure nothing is selected. Now I'm going to go over here. Let's just add a few. Now for this one, you want a few sets of bones. 3 I think would be enough. And let's just draw one over here. We don't want it to be master to anything. So again, escape. 1, 2, 3. And we want the strength of all of these to be at 0. And also, what we want to do is we want to master these bones to, sorry, let's just first select the bone. And I'm going to select both of these. Then I'm going to click on parent to the main head bone because we wanted to basically move around with the head. So I have those now set up. All that's left is that I need to apply this and basically fix it to the layer over there. Now, one thing I can do before I go on and connect this to the layer is I can select these and increase the strength just a little bit. Okay? That would be more than enough. Like so. And now I can assign these to that layer so they don't affect any other layer. So the way to do that is basically you select the bones you want and then you go to, you select the bone first and then go to the layer that you want to apply, bind together, and you will link bones to that layer. And over here, you will bind the layer to that bone. Okay? So now what's going to happen is that if I were to move, hopefully, those will be individually moving the ears. They shouldn't be, so they're not affecting anything else that much, which is fine. And so we have that. The bones set up onto the layer. You can take the extra step to go and bind points to that, but I don't think that is necessary at this point. What you want to do though, you want to bind the points at the end of the ear. So I'm going to go over here. Let's select the bone on the head. All right, and then I'm going to go to the ear layer, holding Alt, right clicking on the ears, and let's deselect everything. And I want to bind these points to this bone right there, so they don't move all around. So I'm going to select those, and down here I'm going to go bind points. All right, and hit enter. So now what's going to happen? What's going to happen is that if I were to go on and move the ear bones, that last section is going to be stuck to that area. But obviously, as you can see, it's not moving the way it should. And the reason for that is because we don't have enough points in the middle, right? To make that movement a little bit smoother. I'm going to add some points right here, 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 here. Let's do the same here. And that's it. We're not going to spend more time on this. Now let's go back to our bone layer and let's turn these to dynamic bones. So first off, I'm going to select the bones, right, so, and you can come over here and then you have the bone dynamics, right? By default, these bone dynamics are on, but what's happening here is that all these settings for dynamics are off. So let's say for angle, I'm going to turn this on for angle, and I'm going to leave it as is, right? Let's see how that is affecting our animation. So I'm going to move to this frame over here, and then I'm going to rotate the head slightly, all right? So it has that bouncy look to it.
It jiggles.
Yes. So the bounce starts to happen. We can actually increase or decrease this effect by going to the constraints again. And let's select the bones again. And you can see the color of these bones have changed as well. That means these bones are now being affected by dynamics.
Oh,
You
you
can-
didn't select the other one.
Sorry?
No.
Okay. And let's say the angle, the torque, and the spring is how springy it is. The more you put that number, the more you will move forward and back. The torque is the power of the movement. Damping is how fast it will stop, right? So obviously the more damping, the higher the number of damping, the stiffer it's gonna look. The material is stiffer. And the weight is basically, the lower the weight, the more you would kind of move around because it's easier to move it around. But it's not only that, you can change the position and you can change the scale. So now, not only that happens, you can actually, the scale will change as well. So let's make him jump a little bit as well. So up to this point, let's say the head turns, that's the head. We're gonna make him jump. And let's grab the, let's press Control F right here so we know that frame. Then it's gonna jump up. Like so. And move it back down. Let's see how that looks. That's a bit way too much, yes. So you can fix this by adjusting the damping settings of those bones. So again, I'm going to select all of these, and then I'm going to go to bone constraints, and I can increase the damping of, let's say, position. Let's turn this position off. I think that's the one that's giving, you know. Let's see. Is it scared? Right. So it's, let's add the position, and I'm going to increase the damping on all of these. Let's see how that looks. Not looking good at all. Let's bring down the springiness. Now, let's bring the weight up. None of them works. Interesting. A little bit better. Not too much, so let's bring the torque a little bit lower. Much better.
And what about the torque of the other ones? Position, the scale.
Sorry?
What about the other torques? Like position, the scale, those are still not.
Yeah, the same. You can. This is something that you can do, by the way. You can press play, and then you can move to the constraints, and you can adjust it and see the result in real time.
Then maybe now if you increase the weight, you can increase it.
A little bit better. And the position and the scale just a little bit less. There you go. You adjust it as much as is needed to achieve the result that you want. Now, it doesn't only stop there, you can actually get in here and adjust each individual bone on these to have more effect or less effect. So maybe the base is a little bit more, and then the more it moves upward, the less of a weight it's gonna have.
But then also we have to eliminate the other arm because when you are jumping the
Yes,
other arm
yes.
is not.
But we're talking about this for now, but we're gonna get there. So yeah, these are the dynamics that you can adjust by just press play and keep on playing with these. There's no formula for this, right? You just have to work around with this. And sometimes you might not even want some of these. So maybe you want the position to be off or the scale to be off. So it just moves around like so. Right? Okay. So moving on, now we have the dynamic. One last thing that is important is the wind setting. So I'm going to turn all of these off. Let's press stop this. Let's go to bones. And I'm just going to turn all the other settings off. And let's turn off all our keyframes. So now the character is standing still. But if I turn this wind off, wind on, sorry, by going to this option, so I click on that, and this will appear, and I'm going to explain what exactly that is. And selecting the bones, let's go to why is it off? Okay, so let's turn the angle on and turn the wind on. Okay. Now if I play, it's actually creating that wind effect for me. And I can adjust this wind by adjusting the settings. It's going to show me how the wind is being blown, and I can increase the strength. Again, live you can do that. I can change the turbulence. And again, another indication is going to show me how that's going to look. I can increase the frequency, so it's going to look a bit more like kind of a storm. And then the gravity is how the gravity is affecting your dynamics. And the direction, which is by default down. Okay? So this is again an automatic setting. This is extremely useful maybe for your character's hair. The hair can be blown in the wind, or maybe your character, I don't know, is flying, then you adjust the direction of the wind, and the wind starts to blow in a certain direction, and everything is animated, you don't have to do anything about it, right? It does it automatically, and also, it can be keyframed. So, I can basically come to frame 1, press Ctrl F, that's the settings, and let's say the wind stops slowly, right? And then over here, I'll just decrease the strength to 0. And as you can see, it has been keyframed. So we have a stormy beginning, and then slowly, the wind is going to die out. So everything basically can be keyframed. Every setting that you see can be keyframed within Moho. So let's get rid of these and go back to the original. And for now, we don't need the wind, so I'm going to go to. Let's turn this off. You can actually adjust the direction and the strength over here as well. So let's go to. That's because of the, no, you can adjust it because of the strength on this one, right?
Because, yeah.
It's affecting that. It's not really important. I don't want to spend time on these videos, that's why I just passed through them. You can turn off the wind, and now the wind is not affecting this at all. Something is affecting it though. Oh. these are dynamic bones. Now, a question that I received a lot was that, Hojam, should we go and create and rig many characters?